from Farm to Fame. And I am joined today with the incredible Jennifer Barney. And just a little bit about Jennifer. She's not only one of my favorite people personally, but she is an incredible food industry entrepreneur. She's the founder of Barney Butter. And we're going to talk a lot more about that now that she's exited successfully. Obviously, Barney is one of the pioneering almond butter brands and one that I like to brag about all the time. And then she successfully exited in 2011, but ever that dynamo, she's continuing to advise and brands and entrepreneurial artisanal brands and entrepreneurs as kind of humans with mentorship and whatnot. But she's always on point, always on brand, incredibly discerning, some of my favorite qualities in a human being. And if you do not subscribe to her The Business of Food email, you are literally missing out, and of course missing out on the socials. So I learned something every week from you. So thank you, Jennifer, and welcome.
Oh, thanks, Allie. Thanks for having me. What an illustrious introduction. I just am so happy to be here. I'd love to I'm happy to talk about my background and what I do today and how I might be helpful to your audience.
Oh, thanks, Jennifer. Appreciate it. And everything's true. Okay, so Jennifer, you founded Barney Butter. I think you had like 4 babies in diapers at the same time and all the things, but you founded it in 2007. And honestly, hearing you tell your story about like testing different varieties of almonds in your Cuisinart in your home kitchen never gets old. And I was hoping that you could tell us a little bit about your founder story and then we're going to get into like the branding of it all too.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, no, I will tell you, starting a food business back in the early 2000s was definitely not hot and cool like it is today. Being a startup founder in CPG, and that stands for consumer packaged goods, was not an investment class that anybody wanted to get involved in. It was truly like a period of time where it was kind of like that mom does good story where it's like, oh, there's the little wifey, she's making something in her house, and then, she's having a cottage business or whatever. And then it ended up being something way bigger than that. So I just want to preface that with, it's very different today. Today, the barriers of entry into CPG are very low, and lots of people it's like, if you are not founding like a beverage brand or something, like, who even are you? It's very cool right now to do it. So back in the day, it was my own cash. It was my husband Rex and I. We came from finance. We both were at Wells Fargo. I understood a little bit about, a P&L and what a balance sheet looked like. So it wasn't too intimidating to start a small business, but really, truly, I was just making almond butter at home for my family. I had moved from the Bay Area to the Central Valley because of banking. Mm-hmm. And I realized I was one of those people, Allie, that did not know where my food came from. Okay.
But why almond butter? Like, why is it?
Because I moved to the Valley, right? I moved to Fresno, and all of a sudden I'm like, oh, all my neighbors are almond farmers. I had no idea that almonds even grew in California. Nothing. I knew nothing about it. It was embarrassing. And I was like, well, how come almond butter is so terrible at the grocery store? I'm buying these wonderful fresh almonds from, people that I know that grow, but then the almond butter, the value added product, was really inferior. So I started making my own for my own need. And then I found that other people obviously industry people got extremely excited, because other than Blue Diamond growers, nobody was really doing anything value added in almonds. Mm-hmm. So by the time I got it into like my first little grocery store, which was the local, they have a little local program at Whole Foods, which survives today. They call them foragers. Those are the buyers, and they'll bring in your product just to test it out. And that was really like the aha moment of, wow, okay, people who don't even know me, they're not buying it out of pity. People really want this, right? And so I think that, that is still true today. Obviously, to have a successful food business, you have to have demand. You have to have some sort of like a pull. But fast forward, I partnered with almond growers and processors. They were my first investors. So, back into like, well, how do you even fund a food business? You either fund it yourself or you find outside investment. And today there is an asset class. I mean, there's a lot of angels and a lot of VCs that invest in food startups, but that wasn't the case then. So partnering with my grower processor was really key for me because not only were they my financial partner, they were my supply chain.
Right.
And so I learned a tremendous amount about agriculture through that relationship. So we grew the brand, we created our own manufacturing facility. And I mean, I would drive my kids to school and then I would drive to the plant.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm managing production, supply, sales, and marketing, all of that.
Mhm.
And I learned so much through that business that after I sold Barney Butter, I had a hiatus of 5 years where I actually ran innovation for a very large CPG company.
Mhm.
And I learned kind of the other side of the business from that. Like, what is it like to work for,
Mhm.
a $800 million company that has teams and humongous budgets and all of that. So I kind of have like the startup end, the 0 to 10, and then I kind of have that approaching $1 billion business experience. And
Yeah.
so then about 9 years ago, I kind of got pulled back into startup, and it was really through ag processors. It was really through my contacts in the almond industry that said, we want to do something more value added here. So almond milk had already been a thing. So think about 2010 to 2012 was when almond milk really, you know,
Yep.
like made a big splash in the industry as something that was not just a snack nut, that
Mhm.
was capturing a lot of category share.
And was that Almond Breeze was first to
Yeah,
market?
so Silk was first, which it was initially White Wave that got bought by Danone. Silk is a Danone product,
Uh-huh.
but yes, but also Almond Breeze. And I mean, look, don't anybody get mad at us here on this podcast for like saying who came first. I think they probably both were around the same time. Technically, the innovation might have been somebody at Almond Breeze first, but when you talk about like first to market, I always like to think of, well, who was first to market in the consumer
Mhm.
category lens, right? So you might have created the innovation and actually put it in market, but if
Yeah.
you weren't getting like what we call household penetration of at least 1%, if you're not getting what we call ACV, all commodity volume, like showing up in syndicated data in some significant way,
Mhm.
that's what we really in our industry call first to market. So yeah, so those two were the dominant players, still are, and that was in the early 2010s. But since then, there was kind of like this lag of innovation in the almond industry. And so I got brought in to so that's how I started my consultancy. So I left Big Food, went back into consultancy.
Mhm.
And then since then, I'm like, gosh, I know so much about startups, about
Mhm.
like how do you even fund, what is the cash conversion cycle? If
Mhm.
let's say you aren't deep pockets, you don't come from ag or something. And so I also advise startups in that realm that are trying to fundraise with institutional investors or angel investors, because of that, because of my background in that. But I think that just for your audience, like the tie into how does agriculture capture more value? I think
Mhm.
it's a really important question because I do think for a lot of the industries that are stuck in kind of commodity mode,
Yeah.
um, I think it's a real question to be answered. And what you do, Allie, in your business is really create that brand identity of,
Mhm.
how are we going to tell the world why we're different and why like our product, when you go to the grocery store or when you're pitching to a retailer or even as an ingredient,
Yeah.
like why is this? You can't just, I think a lot of our industry falls on the merits of like, well, it's obvious. Like
Yeah.
we have these certain farming practices
Mhm.
and that's why we're different and we can just explain it. We'll just tell them. And it's like, well, that's not, it's too competitive, right?
No, you can't just put it on a shelf.
You can't.
So,
No, and I think about dairy, like I think about like whey
yeah.
and the total topsy-turvy of the cheese industry,
Yeah.
and whey is now the thing. And now we have this like,
It's like the thing again, though. Like, it was the thing and then
it
it
was
wasn't,
the
and
thing and now it's the thing again, but now we have supply chain constraints, but we have increasing demand we've never had before. And so how is the industry going to respond?
yeah.
Right? It's opening up opportunities for a lot of other things.
Yeah. Well, and I think, Jennifer, one thing I do just love in the content that you do put out through the business of food is like we're talking about it sort of very top level right now, like, how do we capture more value? But what I love that you do is you're like that you don't just like let it lie. You dive into it with hot takes, right? Like, and not afraid to push the envelope, which is
I have had a number of
I know.
upset people respond because you're
I
absolutely right. I
know, but it is
I
you
think
it's like
I think that
speaking.
it's important for us to take a position. And taking a
Yeah,
position means that some people are going to agree and other people are going to disagree. And
because
I'm a person that takes a
there
position.
should you are so great at making the case for like, yes, there should be more value add and brands should be built, but in a lot of what times you're pushing for like, it doesn't matter and it shouldn't be. And this is why, because let's like do this in the veil of like reality of a consumer. Like
Right.
that's where the ag industry has, like, you are such an incredible bridge between like the ag industry and sort of our like, it's always been this way mode. And like, damn it, we're going to grow it and you're going to like it. Like you do not let that be. Like that is not, you are like, no, I'm taking a pragmatic consumer focused approach. I have been on the shelves. I have been in the trenches. I know how hard it's, and I'm a discerning, mom and like prolific cook and all the rest of it. Like I know what people want and why. And if you don't get it,
I don't know. So yes and no. I don't know that I know what people want. Like I think like there's, I've been surprised. Like I just wrote about coconut water yesterday.
Yeah.
It's like I had no idea that coconut water was suddenly surging. Like I would have told you a week ago. I did actually come out and say, coconut water household penetration isn't going to grow more than 20%.
Right.
And then you see that, GoPuff and Tom Brady just launched a coconut water because GoPuff saw 115% increase in coconut water sales on their platform. So I don't know if I'm right about trends all the time, but what I do agree with you that I do is I take an operator lens to things and I say, okay, if somebody hires me, I'm not just going to tell you what you want to hear. I'm going to tell you what you need to hear, which is how are you going to make money?
Yeah.
How are you going to make money at this idea? Right. So somebody has an idea for a product and like they have really good intentions, right? Well, we want to add value to our industry. We want to, let's say, bring awareness to a particular varietal of a certain type of, produce or something. Okay. That's super. That's all well and good. Now let's take that vision and let's model this out as a business case to all the cuts of revenue, all of the deductions to revenue that are going to happen before it actually gets to the consumer.
Yeah.
And so that's what I really love to do is take that operator lens and explain that to people. And in the process of doing that, I do get, folks that write me back and say, well, I don't have to promote my product because it just sells. Why? Because it just tastes better.
Yeah, right.
And I'm like, okay, that's awesome.
Yeah, for sure.
But when you get your very first check back from your very first PO that you sent out and it's zero not because it didn't sell, but because that's the business model of the route to market, like you're going to be surprised. And I don't want you to be surprised. I want you to plan for that.
And that's why you're a great advisor.
Well, thanks.
So I will say this on the coconut water, and then we're going back to Barney butter. But on the coconut water, like I even personally, I haven't bought coconut water since I was training for the Olympics. I was so sick of it. But honestly, like I've started putting in smoothies now.
Okay.
Like, I think, because I kind of was reminded to do that on TikTok. I think
so are you doing it because
I was doing like the Olivia, like I like that's.
So you're not doing it for the taste, or you're doing it for the electrolytes? Because it's a natural form of electrolyte?
It's a natural sweetener. And so that way it makes it taste better.
Can I ask you what brand are you doing, like a private label, or is there a brand that you use?
Okay. So I really like the Trader Joe's brand.
Okay.
And there's hot takes, and I actually worked on a coconut project in New York while I was still like in fashion. Like I loved it. I worked on Vita Coco, and it was great.
Well, it's probably being packed by Vita Coco.
Well, I was around during the coconut wars. That's when I was in New York, and that's when it went down. And that was actually my first thing into that was my first
when Zico was owned by Coca-Cola, because they bought it back.
Like the actual Brazilians were promoting things on the street in New York. It was a fun time.
That is so cool.
This is not a coconut water story.
Okay, anyway.
And I am not equipped to talk about coconut water in a deep way. But
neither am I.
Can we go back to 2006? What was on the shelf?
Yeah.
On the almond butter. How many products?
There were so the number one player, the brand player, was called Maranatha, and it's still out there today.
Yep.
But these are brands that you wouldn't know unless you shopped in natural food stores. And natural food stores back in 2005 were dusty, little, like they smelled weird.
Yeah.
It wasn't cool. Yeah. So Whole Foods was, emerging and growing, and they were, adding locations and stuff. And they still are the beacon of, I would say, the natural
Mhm.
industry, but now we have a lot more stores and we have all these shoppy shops now too that really can't be classified as natural food stores. They're just like the Erewhons and Happier Grocery and all of that. And this is a really popular place to launch when you're starting to test out brick and mortar. Okay. But your question, like what brands were around, there weren't very many, right? And in fact, like I would do demos at normal grocery stores. Like I would like, let's say get into, there was this little store called Catalano's. I think it's called something else in Fresno, independent grocery. And I'd go do demos in there and people would be like almond butter. And they'd kind of look at me like, do you put it on your skin? Like,
Yeah.
I'd have to say, no, 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 this is like peanut butter, but it's made with almonds. So we're talking about like really an unknown,
Yeah.
not high awareness. So there was Maranatha, and then Justin's was really Justin's and Barney were tracking kind of the same growth. Of course, they just totally exploded. By the time I sold my company, like Justin's was already 3 times my growth.
Mhm.
So those are kind of the legacy brands. And now when you look at a nut butter shelf, I mean, almond butter is no longer kind of a fringe weird thing. It takes up
Yep.
a lot of shelf space. And
Yep.
now you've got cashew butter and pecan butter and pistachio butter and all these mixed seed
Every
butters. And
every spread.
the category's completely changed.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about the branding part of it. When you and I love your take on branding. So when you were developing Barney, but I mean, I think honestly, weren't you first in like farmers markets with like a little tub and a sticker?
Yeah, like it's free. It was just free. A girlfriend of mine, really good friend of mine, her dad, who was retired from an ad agency, made my very first logo for free.
Mhm.
And so by the time I wasn't able to afford real branding until I had partnered with my investor supplier, and we just like wrote a big giant check, and it
Got
was so worth it.
Oh,
It
tell
was
me
the
more.
best thing I ever did.
So,
Huh?
why was that a game changer for you?
Okay, so obviously, like, people I think of branding as a logo.
Mhm.
And yes, obviously, if the first and only time somebody's going to experience your product is on a shelf, your logo matters a lot.
Mhm.
But it's more than a logo. It's everything about how it is that you are speaking to your consumer in all the touch points. And obviously, today we have e-commerce. We have a lot more ways to get in front of the consumer
Mhm.
than just the product on the shelf.
Mhm.
And so the reason why it's worth spending the money is because if you get it wrong, okay, if you're not understanding who you are, or you have a brand partner that doesn't understand who you are, then the manifestation of you visually is not going to resonate. And then you're just pouring money down the drain.
Mhm. And I think that just chiming in on that, I think if you don't get it right and if you aren't like building your brand and like launching your brand with conviction and shepherding your brand, then you just give too much power to the person on the other side to like make it what they think you are.
Mhm.
Right? And like it's like you're giving away control and you're just letting somebody have all sorts of assumptions. Like this is what I think I should do with you, which is fine. They can innovate and they can evolve, but like it's just like it's like taking away like your most like powerful voice almost. And
Yeah.
then when you're advising your clients, when do you tell them that it's like time to like actually deep dive into branding?
I mean, I think the branding has to be right earlier and sooner.
Mm,
Um, so that's just my personal belief is you got to get it right. I mean, the product has to be right, and I think the branding has to be right. There's just really no time to waste because there's too much competition. I think that maybe 10 years ago, you could wait a little bit longer. You could kind of just go out with like a good enough sort of version of your brand and be
mhm,
like, well, I'm just going to go test it because, there's time.
mhm,
Um, but the competition is so fierce now. Like if there's any glimmer of white space in any category for any reason,
mhm,
you're just going to have it's just going to be a tremendous amount of um, fighting for attention for with the consumer. So I think that the sooner the better. I want my brands to show the best version of themselves as early as possible.
mhm. And then with like kind of like some of these artisanal brands that are kind of just getting off the ground, what is other than other than making sure to kind of invest in like actual brand strategy, positioning, and like ideation earlier than later, are there any other like sort of like go-to like recommendations that you have for them from a marketing and sales perspective?
So specifically like a small artisanal brand versus what do you mean? Like versus a brand? I would say it would be different depending on how big I think the brand could go.
Okay.
Okay. So, I get very excited about brands that have potential to, get to $100 million in a couple of years.
Mhm.
Um, Otherwise, I think that it's cool to do something it's cool to do something really, really novel that needs a lot of explaining.
Mhm.
Um, but you're gonna have to have a lot of money and not expect to make any money for a really long time if you're trying to do that.
Mhm.
So, my advice in terms of how you're gonna allocate spend towards marketing is gonna be different depending on how much money you have to invest and what is the business model ramp up expectation. Okay.
Mhm.
Um, so just to reframe your question, like how do I advise brands that are just kind of starting in terms of what to and how to invest in marketing? Is that kind of
Yeah, I think there's sort of like it's like obviously everything's a bespoke, unique, like situation, but like, are there any like sort of like places where you're like, dude, you have to do this, or you know what, like this has just like been overdone, and like you know, don't. I mean, I think that we've talked about this a lot. Don't spend, your whole marketing budget on your trade show booth necessarily out of the gate.
yeah,
Things like that, like
right.
like
Yes.
that's evolving,
So
right?
I know. Like, so again, like I just go back to I am no like I do not have a crystal ball. I'm no oracle of like use this color because it's going to really pop or this is a certain certification you have to have. Like that's not me. I'm not going to be able to tell you what the future is. But I can and do tell you like you might be really good at selling a product,
Mm-hmm.
but what you have to do is you have to be good at building a business.
Right.
And so making decisions like, should I invest 15, 20, $25,000 on a trade show booth
Mhm.
when I do not have shippable product yet
Okay.
is the kind of
Yeah.
decision that is a business decision
Yes.
that I can help you with.
Yes.
Okay. So either we work on what is the barrier to getting shippable product
Right.
or we postpone that trade show conversation for next year.
Right.
And so
Right.
those are the types of things I get into with my clients.
That is I love it. I love it. Well, Jennifer, thanks for coming on the pod. You, like, of course, left me with more questions than answers, so I appreciate that. That's like
Well, thanks for having me.
I know, appreciate it. Well, and thanks, just like congrats on everything. And again, for everybody who is following and you want to learn more about food and the business of food, definitely subscribe to Jennifer's.
It's my Substack, so just go on Substack, Jennifer Barney, the business food. It's free. I think that's the biggest selling point is it's free. Thanks, Allie.
It's fantastic. So thank you, everybody. And thanks, Jennifer.